I never thought I'd become a hikikomori. Growing up, I was an ordinary girl, albeit a little shy, living in a small, cozy house with my mom in Takamatsu, Kagawa Prefecture. My name is Yumi, and I'm 23 years old. For as long as I can remember, it's been just me and my mom, Haruka. She works as an office lady in the city, always wearing those tight pencil skirts, white blouses, and the uncomfortable black heels that make her wince every time she slips them on. In the winter, she layers on a jacket and sometimes even wears a scarf, but the thin, transparent black collar pantyhose and those ridiculous high heels would never change. She once told me, "I don't have to like it, just endure it." In fact, because I don't like the uniform, it makes it all the more reason why I should wear it to work, the boss once told me. Despite the discomfort of her outfit, Mom's strict demeanor never faltered. She's kind, but my God, she used to be a very strict mother back in my school years. She always insisted that my grades can never be anything less than 90 out of 100. I remember once in high school when I tried smoking with some friends, thinking I was rebellious and wanting to be one of the cool girls. Mom found out. She didn't just scold me, she put me over her knee and spanked me until I was bawling my eyes out, promising never to touch another cigarette again in my life. But after that, I never dared to step out of line and was always super polite and super respectful, always bowing my head politely whenever I'm addressing my mom. And although I resented her at the time, I knew that my mom did it out of love for me. She would occasionally reward me for good grades and other accomplishments too during my school years. She's probably the reason I'm not a delinquent today. Now, in part because of how society is today, and in part due to the faltering economy, I rarely leave my room, which has become my sanctuary. It's a small, dim place with walls covered in posters of anime characters that I adore. The room is cluttered with books, a few gaming consoles, and a laptop that I use for work. I'm a freelance writer, which allows me to stay hidden from the world. My window faces the narrow street outside, where I can watch the neighbors and the occasional car pass by, including my mom's small silver Toyota Aqua. Our house is modest, just 2 bedrooms and a kitchen that doubles as a dining area. It's an older home, but it has a certain charm, with tatami mats and sliding doors that creak when the wind blows too hard. It's always been enough for us. But lately the walls have started to feel like they're closing in, ever since the incident next door. It was a late summer evening, and Mom had just come home from work, looking as tired as ever. She greeted me with a weak smile before heading to her room to change out of her office lady uniform. I was at my desk working on an article when I heard the sound of sirens wailing in the distance. They were getting closer and louder. I peered out of my window, and that's when I saw them. Police cars, lined up along the street, lights flashing ominously. "Mom," I called, my voice trembling. "Something's going on outside." She came to my room, her expression growing more concerned as she looked out the window with me. We watched as the police officers swarmed the house next door, the one that had always seemed a little off. The family that lived there was reclusive, much like me, but there was always something unsettling about them. The 2 brothers who lived there were often seen coming and going at odd hours, sometimes with strange people in tow, but we never paid much attention. Takamatsu is a quiet city, and strange people come and go. What's happening? I asked, more to myself than to Mom. I don't know, Yumi, she replied, her voice quiet. But I think we should stay inside. We didn't have to wait long to find out. The news broke later that night. A body has been found in the alley behind the house next door, stuffed into a garbage bag and wrapped in an old rug. The girl, barely older than me, had been beaten to death. The details were gruesome. Too gruesome. I remember Mom turning off the TV before the report was over, her face pale as a ghost. It's terrible, she whispered. How could something like that happen here? The next few days were a blur. The police were everywhere, questioning the neighbors, including my mom. She told them everything she knew, which wasn't much. Just that she'd seen the brothers around, but they never interacted with anyone. They asked me too, but I had nothing to tell them. I never left the house after all. As the days passed, the horror of what happened next door began to settle in. The brothers were arrested, and soon after the truth came out. It was a twisted tale of jealousy and rage. The girl had been lured to the house by one of the brothers and his girlfriend. They had tortured her for hours, beating her with whatever they could find, a metal pipe, a wooden bat, until she finally died. And then they tried to cover it up by hiding her body, hoping no one would notice. But someone did. The girlfriend, who turns out to be just a high school girl, had been the one to lure the victim to the house. She was jealous of the attention the girl was getting from one of the brothers. It was a petty, childish thing, but it turned deadly. The brothers had helped her, laughing as they beat the light out of the poor girl. It was sickening, the kind of thing you read about in horror stories, not something that happens in real life. Not here, in Takamatsu. Mom was shaken. She tried to put on a brave face, but I could see the fear in her eyes every time she left the house. She started coming home earlier, checking on me more often. I hated seeing her like that, so scared. But what could I do? I was scared too. And then the nightmares started. At first I thought it was just my mind playing tricks on me. I would wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, my heart pounding, convinced that someone was watching me. But there was never anyone there, just the shadows in my room, shifting and swirling in the darkness. But it wasn't just my dreams. Strange things started happening around the house as well. Doors would open and close on their own. I could hear whispers, faint and distinct, like someone was standing just behind me, but when I turned around, no one was there. The air in my room grew colder, no matter how many blankets I piled on the bed. One night, I woke up to the sound of crying. It was soft at first, barely audible, but it grew louder and more desperate, until it was echoing through the entire house. I covered my ears, trying to block it out, but it didn't stop. The sound was coming from the walls, from the floor, from the very air around me. Yumi! Mom burst into my room, her face pale and frightened. Did you hear that? I nodded, too scared to speak. We stood there huddled together, listening to the ghostly wails that seemed to go on forever, and then just as suddenly as it had started, the crying stopped. Mom tried to dismiss it the next day, saying it was just the wind, or maybe a stray cat outside, but I knew better. I could feel it, the cold, creeping dread that had settled over our home. The spirits were angry, restless. They knew what happened next door, and they weren't going to just... They knew what happened next door, and they weren't going to let us forget. The final straw came a week later. I was alone in my room working on an article when I felt a cold hand brush against the back of my neck. I jumped up, spinning around, but there was no one there. My laptop screen flickered, the lights in the room dimmed, and then I saw it, a figure, barely visible in the corner of my eye, standing in the doorway. It was a girl, her face bruised and bloodied, her eyes wide with terror. She didn't move, didn't speak. She just stared at me as if begging for help. I was frozen, unable to move or scream, as she slowly faded away, leaving behind only a faint scent of blood and decay. I didn't sleep that night or the night after that. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her standing there, watching me. I knew I had to do something, but what? How do you appease a spirit so filled with pain and anger? Mom and I eventually moved away, leaving that cursed house behind. She said it was because of the memories, that she couldn't stand to live so close to where such terrible crime has happened. But I knew the real reason. The spirits had driven us out. Even now, in our new home, miles away from Takamatsu, I still feel them sometimes. In the dead of night, when everything is quiet, I can hear the faint sound of crying echoing through the walls. I don't know if I'll ever be free of them. I don't know if I deserve to be. Maybe this is my punishment for living so close to such evil and doing nothing to stop it. Or maybe it's just my mind twisted and broken by the horrors I've seen. Either way, the ghosts of Takamatsu will haunt me for the rest of my life.